Hi, welcome to Promo Insiders, an ASI Media podcast that covers the issues that matter most to the promotional products industry. I'm Chris Ruvo for ASI. I'm joined today by my colleague Brendan Menapace, Content Director for ASI Media's sister publication, Print and Promo Marketing. We're here today to talk about weed, or to elaborate the growing sales opportunities for print and promotional products firms that are sparking in the legal cannabis industry. Brendan, I'm sorry
Unbelievable.
for those terrible puns, but I had to do it. I felt that it was necessary to interject, and I hope you don't mind too much and won't hold it against me the rest of this podcast.
I think the occasion calls for it. I think it was appropriate.
All right, very good. Well, Brendan, you recently did a very interesting in-depth feature on the cannabis market, the legal cannabis market,
Mhm.
and opportunities therein for print and promo firms, and that's really what we're going to talk about, right? So, I want to give people some context though to just how big this market is. So, in your research, what did you find? Just how big is the legal cannabis market?
Well, there's a few answers to this. The numbers that I kind of settled on was one that I saw that they're projecting the growth right now to hit 82.3 billion by 2027, which seems like a faraway number, but being
Hmm.
that that's only a few years away, the growth is huge. It's a huge industry. Like you said, the legal cannabis industry
Hmm.
is growing and already huge.
Hmm. All right, so it's a big deal, and I've seen various stats too. It depends on which source you go to, right? But they all are projecting. Nobody's saying, "Hey, this market is going to retreat." I think I saw one statistic from Marijuana Business Daily or something to that, a
Mhm.
trade publication for that industry, and it had indicated that when you add up the additional economic impact of the legal marijuana industry, beyond just the marijuana industry itself, but its knock-on economic impact, they were saying something like 170 billion by 2028. So
Yeah.
it's this is a significant marketplace, and I think it's just important that we keep that in mind is why we're even focusing on it. But with this marketplace comes complications, obviously. And one of the big ones, of course, is legality. So,
hmm
what's kind of the current legal situation in the U.S. regarding legal cannabis and marijuana?
Well, right now it is fully legal in Maine, Vermont, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Maryland, Virginia, Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, Missouri, Minnesota, Montana, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, California, Washington, and Oregon. Now, those are just the ones where you can just walk into a dispensary and get whatever you want as long as you're of the legal age. That's
Hmm.
not even taking into account the states where there's a bit more variable, like
Hmm.
whether it's medically legal but not recreationally legal, or maybe it's decriminalized. These are states like New Hampshire where it's medical and decriminalized on a recreational basis, or states like Pennsylvania where it's medical, but then there are cities like Philadelphia where it's decriminalized.
Hmm.
There's no blanket legality. So it
Hmm.
really is a state by state, even city by city or county by county basis. The only states where it right now is fully illegal, though, are
Hmm.
South Carolina, Kansas, Wyoming, and Idaho. So that presents, what is that? 56, or I'm sorry, 46 states where
Okay.
it's at least in play in some way.
Okay. And if I was quick tabulating. I thought you were going to go into "I've been everywhere, man," rather than off the
Yeah.
state. But the I think it was about roughly half, right? Almost half of U.S. states, like over 20. It sounds like
Yeah,
right around
it's
25,
it's
maybe. Yeah.
overwhelmingly more legal than it is illegal.
Okay. And the big caveat to all this is even though there's state level laws in many states saying, "Hey, it's
Mhm.
okay," it still is illegal federally, correct?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
So that
All right.
that is an interesting thing we have going on in the US.
All right, all right. And there was one other thing I think in the reporting I saw that it could be rescheduled. Can you just explain to people what that means and what its implications might be?
Sure, and I think you can chime in on this too. I know you've done a
Mhm.
good bit of reporting on this. Cannabis right now is what's called a Schedule One drug, so it's on par with, the dangerous narcotics like heroin and things like that. Rescheduling would put it basically on a par with other commonly used medicinal drugs,
Okay.
and that would take away, I think, anecdotally, in conversations I've had with people in the promotional products industry who cater to this cannabis market, That would take a bit of the stigma attached, and already the stigma is disappearing around it, but that would really, I think, make it a more attractive industry to a lot of promotional products professionals and print professionals who aren't already enticed to join.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right, so good to keep in mind. I think last I read, that rescheduling that wasn't about to happen overnight. Is that correct? It's kind of a
That's
process.
correct. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not the kind of thing where they're going to wave a magic wand and suddenly it's different.
Okay. All right, but still something to keep an eye on and may even lead to more opportunity
Yeah,
in this.
absolutely. And yeah, absolutely could lead to more opportunity.
Very good. So speaking of opportunity, what are some of would you say are the main opportunities in this market for promo distributors? Who are some of the end
Mhm.
clients you might want to target, for instance?
Well, like I had mentioned before, there are the dispensaries. Now, these are the places where you just go in and the same way you would buy anything at a grocery store, you go in and get the cannabis product you want.
Hmm.
Those operate like any other business. Obviously, there are legal hoops they have to jump through, but
Hmm.
they need promotional products just like everyone else. And especially as states are legalizing it, we saw it in the original boom in the likes of California and Colorado.
Hmm.
It's sort of a gold rush moment where a lot of dispensaries suddenly pop up. So on what like the first thing that you think of right now is these are local businesses that need to stand out from their competition, and they're going to
Hmm.
use promotional products in a way to, advertise themselves, plain and simple. Aside from that, you have things like employee uniforms. The people working in the
Hmm.
dispensaries are going to be wearing t-shirts, maybe hats, whatever their, workwear might be with a, logo placed on the chest right there. And there's on the print side, you have things like flyers, stickers to advertise. And
Hmm.
again, on that print side, the biggest opportunity that not only that I would say, but
Hmm.
talking to people like Bob Saunders from Wise,
Hmm.
labels. Labels are going to be huge. All of these
Okay.
products need labels because it is still, kind of whether it's a medical dispensary or a recreational dispensary, it's tangentially related to that healthcare market. And you can think of it
Hmm.
that way where all of these products need labels to say what it is, the same way, and say like, the milligrams, the thing, just what you can expect from taking this product,
Okay.
the necessary warnings of all of that.
Hmm.
So that's on the dispensary side. And then again, you can think of it again as suppliers and distributors like you would in the promotional products industry, where
Hmm.
dispensaries are sort of the distributor, albeit in a brick and mortar setting. You have the suppliers, which is the actual growing companies and companies that manufacture things like gummies and
Hmm.
edibles and vape pens and oil. All of those companies also need packaging. They need labels. They need products to advertise themselves, things like that. And to
And
go back to this,
presumably too, just to your earlier point, some kind of identifying employee wear, even if it's
absolutely.
t-shirts and hoodies. So all that standard stuff that you might sell to any business is all in play in this market too.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I don't think I think some people might overcomplicate it or add some layer of mystery that isn't there. These are just
Hmm.
businesses, and corporate gifts are the same as corporate gifts. They might want a hoodie, they might want a blanket around the holidays. All of these products are still in play, but you can lean into the themes of things that are related to the cannabis industry, and this could be on the dispensaries level, things like lighters, rolling papers, grinders, where you actually like, grind up the product,
Hmm.
and storage containers, everything of that nature. But then again, yeah, the sky really is the limit every promotional product is in play here.
Okay. And it just in recalling some things for your article too, other end clients, right? Like, hey, there's the literal farmers outgrowing
Hmm.
this in the field. There's equity firms that have interest in this industry, and if rescheduling happens, just from what some of I've read, that even more might jump in. So there's other potential end clients in play in there. Even if medical labs can start to study this
Hmm.
with rescheduling, there's opportunity there too. Again, maybe not for marijuana specific products, but first, hey, they might need some kind of identifying wear, some kind of promotional thing, employee gifts around the holidays, all that stuff that you mentioned. So it's a potentially broad market with a lot of knock-on effect. Now,
But that's
one of the
exactly
things,
right. And one thing, if I could jump in for a second, one
yeah,
thing
of
too
course,
is like with any industry that grows, you and I see this in the promotional products industry, there are trade shows for this. There are cannabis industry trade
festivals.
shows.
Yeah.
So, these companies need signage, they need table covers, they need all of the things that, you would give to your clients for any trade show. And we know there are some very niche trade shows that applies to this too.
Yeah. Great point. And building on the festivals, right? Like there are
Hmm.
festivals for these things. So yes, any number of things, and even dispensaries where we live. We're not too far from New Jersey. It's, as you
Hmm.
mentioned, recreational marijuana is legal in New Jersey. Some of these dispensaries go to community days and set up there, and they want to say, hey, like, look, we're any other business in the community. We're not, like, bringing vice and destruction, like
Exactly. Yeah.
here's a frisbee and just something to, or excuse me,
Hmm.
a flying disc. We can't use the branded term, but you get the picture. So like, yeah, hopefully that gives people some idea of who you could be targeting in this market. I do want to ask, though, because it's tricky. Advertising and marketing is tricky in this niche. So
Yes.
can you just, and I think this could be a whole podcast in itself with, like, a lawyer, but can you give us some sense of what, like, the legal picture looks like when it comes to advertising and marketing, and just things to be aware of?
Yeah, absolutely. Off the bat, I am not a lawyer. I have no legal background. This is just from conversations that I've had with people and
Mhm.
from my own research. But the biggest thing really seems to be not appealing to children the same way that you see in tobacco and alcohol. You won't use things like cartoon characters, like the same reason that you don't see Joe Camel anymore. You're not going to have a fun cartoon mascot for a cannabis company because it could appeal to children. And
Mhm.
now the things like edibles, look like candy. They need to
Sure.
be very, very careful to, not make it just look like this is regular candy that could get in the hands of children. That said, if it does, the biggest thing that I've talked to people about is childproof packaging.
Okay.
And Ryan Tickle over at Cannabis Promotions, are a supplier of products specifically for this industry. He said that some of the product testing literally is getting 50 kids in a room, handing them some packaging and say, here, try and get in this.
Is that
And if
right?
they're, yep, and if they're able
Okay.
to open it, then the
Wow.
product is not going to work. So
That's some
that's
test group, boy.
yeah, yeah. And but it works, and that's really seems to be the paramount of just, don't appeal to kids, don't, and in the advertising itself, you can't, well, I'm trying to think of the word, maybe, just really glorify it as
Okay.
something that could really appeal to kids. Like
This
they
is
still
gonna
need,
solve all your problems and life is
yep, and
good.
there's absolutely no possible downside to doing
Yeah.
this. There's nothing
Okay.
that you need to worry about. Just kick back, and yeah, so it needs to be, you need to have a lot to keep in mind. And then on the legal side, just as we were saying that, state to state, I could practically throw a football into New Jersey from my house, but
Hmm.
the law where I live versus the law there is wildly different. So
Hmm.
you need to take that into account. And each state, even if they have legal recreational cannabis or legal medicinal cannabis, there are weird little laws. Like Pennsylvania is what's called a non-combustion state, where
Okay.
you can't get what's referred to as flower. This is what you think of when you think of weed, like the actual green bud that you would roll up into
Sure.
something. You can't get that at a dispensary. So for that reason, if you were a promotional products distributor, you would not sell a Pennsylvania dispensary rolling papers or a lighter because it's useless. There's no
Okay.
anyone who's in Pennsylvania ostensibly has no use for that.
Okay.
And then on the signage side, a lot of states have things like in Alabama, you can't advertise on apparel or portable signs or
Okay.
billboards. In California, even where I'm sorry, not in California, in Colorado, which
Mhm.
was really the forerunner of all of this, if you have advertising outside of your dispensary, it needs to be on the same lot as the business and can only be used like for the purpose of identifying the business. You can't
Wow.
have signs around the neighborhood advertising your prices or anything like that. It needs to be this is the sign to say this is the cannabis dispensary and that's it.
Okay. All right, so the broad takeaways there I'm hearing are, no matter where you're trying to do business with legal
Mhm.
cannabis companies, You don't want anything in any way to even remotely give the impression that it's appealing to children. So avoid
Yeah, that's
that.
exactly
That's
right.
that's like a pan rule. But then after that, there's a lot of state to state minutia. So if you're trying to do business in a particular state, you have to know what the regulations are there in particular, and tailor your everything from your product pitches to your messaging on the products to how those products are packaged accordingly. Is that like a fair sum up of it?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Mhm.
The thing that I can't stress enough is just to do the research and talk to people in that state, because you don't want to end up with products that you can't use, or, worse, there are stories, again, Ryan from Cannabis Promotions was telling me that they have had to find like new credit card processors as a result of, being in this industry. It's very
Mhm.
tricky and the consequences are real. So you have to be absolutely diligent that you are doing things the right way in the state that you are doing business, even if you're not physically there. But if you are
Mhm.
marketing something to another state, you need to be dead certain that what you're doing is kosher.
Yeah, and probably want to even yeah even ask like it
Just
like
ask. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, all right. So good to know. Another thing I think is real key here that we've kind of given people a sense of what the market is, what to look out for.
Mhm.
But what are just some like basic sales and marketing strategies for getting in with these businesses? And you're talking with distributors. It seemed like they had a few ideas for how to do that.
Yeah, I think, it's not anything too far from what we've already seen in the promotional products industry. It's just, forming these relationships. It could be local, it could not be. But, one of the things is you can go to these industry trade shows. There's things called like the CBD Expo Tour, and like all across the country, there are trade shows for this. And you can, network the same as you would absolutely anywhere, form
Mhm.
relationships with businesses, ask them what they need. And one of the things I've heard is like there's already demand. So it's a rare opportunity where you can just be the service provider that these businesses need.
Mhm.
They come and say, yeah, I really need t-shirts, or yeah, I really need packaging. You can be that person that they've already have the demand for. They're just waiting for the right person to knock on their door, so to speak.
Okay. All right. Very, very interesting. I like the idea of networking in too, as a broad point. I mean, even as simple as these, you have to remember, and I think this is like just a maybe a stigma or something for people to get through, is these are legitimate businesses,
Yeah,
so they're going to join their local chamber of commerce too and be part. So if you're
that's
there,
exactly
like,
right. It's straight. It's all, you're not doing business with Omar from The Wire.
right.
Or
Yeah.
maybe you're doing business with Stringer Bell now.
Yeah, okay. Very, very good. So it's another thing, just to keep in mind too. I think it doesn't hurt to be like you don't have to partake in marijuana to sell to this
Huh.
industry. Just the same way that you don't need to be a drinker to sell to drink brands, but just the way that you would need to understand the concerns of adult beverage brands to
Mhm.
and what they're looking to do and accomplish their goals. It's the same application here. You want to get to just know those needs, wants, desires, like you said, know what those goals are, but then also have like a be able to speak their language a little bit, right? Like
Yeah,
know
it's
what
a
certain
bit like
terminologies are and
it's not crazy for me to suggest working in the sports market in this industry, but I would argue that a lot of people who sell into that market are not starting point guard quality of an
right.
NBA team. But they know, the thing to know is like, to use this basketball example, when the basketball season starts, you know who the teams are, you know the locality, you generally know how the game works, in that like if you're selling apparel, you know the sort of apparel that they want. That translates over to this. You never have to try any cannabis product. That does not matter at all. The same as you said, like you don't have to be a drinker to sell to bars. You just have to understand the culture, things like, there are sort of unofficial holidays like 420, or then any of the regional festivals that go on, like where it's legal, they have little, regional festivals.
Mhm.
Know about that, have it on your calendar, reach out
Marketing
when the time is
opportunities there,
appropriate.
right? So
Exactly. It's already happening. You might as well get in on it. It's a growing industry, to use a rough pun, not as rough as anything you say at the top of the show, but you know, again, you don't have to be an expert on the product, but you can provide that marketing expertise that these companies don't have necessarily. They know their lane, a distributor knows their lane too. You just need to be that expert and know what to offer them and when to offer it to them. And again, be up and up on all of the legal stipulations so you're not giving them something that they can't use.
Yeah. I think that's great stuff. Any final thoughts, Brendan, just on this market, on what distributors should be doing, where this is all going?
No, I think we really covered a lot. And like, as you said, each of these little things could be their own show. But the thing that I took away the most, I think, from speaking to some suppliers and distributors is that they kind of can't believe how little competition they have.
Okay.
And when I'd ask them about competition, I would kind of say, like, they would say things like, really inviting people to join. And I was like, do you want people to join? They're like, there's room for everyone here.
Mm-hmm.
The same way there is in other markets, there's room for everyone. So it's kind of one of those things where they can't believe it's not popping off as hard as it is.
And when you say that, you mean in terms of the cannabis industry itself, or promo selling to that
I mean,
industry?
promo selling into cannabis.
Yeah,
They can't, like, guys like distributors and suppliers alike are really not, if they're not staking their claim and, making sure no one gets to where they found the oil, they're like, yeah, come on, there's plenty to go around.
So if I'm a distributor, I'm hearing that and I'm thinking, crikey, like I could become the person for this market if by market that's maybe have 170 billion in knock-on economic impact
exactly
by 2028.
You don't have to make this your entire identity. You don't have to only sell to this. It's the same as, like, let's say you sell to local schools and a bank comes looking for promotional products. You don't have to change your entire focus to be in the finance industry. That's just one client. But again, like, the local dispensary that's involved in your chamber of commerce, if they say they need packaging or print products or t-shirts, sure, why not?
All right. Sure, why not? That's a good place to end it. Brendan, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I think it's really interesting. I think we packed a lot into a fairly little amount of time. So thanks so much. And if for the people who are listening, if you haven't read it, go to our website, asicentral.com/news, and check out Brendan's story. Very interesting feature on the cannabis market. Thank you, Brendan.
Thanks for having me.